In the big picture, you look at the way this team has played, and you've got a case where, as you point out, Tulo not back yet, Donaldson not back yet. And when we talk about why that start was so alarming for them in terms of the way they played and why a bad start, why a first 12 games or so that go as poorly as they did, why that matters is that the Jays have actually played better baseball this month, and now look, one bad series, and they're right back, pushed down further into the cellar. So for me, that's why you look at, yes, there have been some admirable performances within this larger context of the team struggling. But for me, Joe, I look at it and say this team is still really in a tough spot right now. Yes, they've played better, but they're going to have to play a lot better, substantially better, at around probably a 600 clip or even higher than that, just to make sure they're in a territory where they're not actually having to be a seller at the trade deadline.
No, and look, they're 17-24. You've got, in the American League, we're going to have Buck Showalter on next hour. Baltimore's had a great season. They're neck and neck with the Yankees. They're a game and a half back. Boston has their share of injuries, and you know that lineup is stacked. I mean, Tampa's almost 500. The Jays have quite the mountain to climb. You go through the standings in Major League Baseball, and you look at some of these teams. In the Central has Minnesota at 19-16, but Houston has just been on a tear. Texas has won, I think, 8 in a row. The LA Angels of Anaheim, Mike Trout is absolutely out of his mind with 150 home runs and 150 stolen bases at the youngest guy to do that in the history of baseball. Washington is having a great season. Milwaukee quietly having a great season. Colorado and Arizona and the Dodgers are all neck and neck in the West. I mean, it's been, considering how early we are in the season, a pretty interesting season already.
Oh, it has been, Joey. I absolutely think it has been. And you look at the way, to me, I love when young stars arrive and when they announce their presence to the larger baseball world. And certainly with the Yankees, that's been the case with Aaron Judge. The Dodgers, has been the case for Cody Bellinger, who really, I think, in many respects, has rescued their season and helped sustain them through this stretch. So I think we're in a really good, really exciting spot for the game in its history. And when you see the Yankees now, I think this is the point that's important to make from a standpoint of the Jays in the American League East. The Yankees, to me, are back to being the Yankees. The Yankees that we saw, maybe not in the 90s during their absolute heyday, but they are now, again, an elite team. And they took a couple of years sabbatical from that status, and the Jays made the playoffs back-to-back years and really had some great opportunities to make the World Series. But I think now you look at the way that the division looks, and it's much deeper. The Yankees are sustaining themselves. The Orioles, and you mentioned your conversation with Buck. I think it's fascinating that I believe at this point, Joey, that still the Orioles have the most wins, I believe, in the American League since 2012, as we stand right now. And they've had a phenomenal run, and Buck deserves an immense amount of credit for that. He has kept that team, despite the fact that they have been outspent substantially by the Yankees and Red Sox. They have been in the race almost every single year since then. So I give Buck immense credit. And the Red Sox, to me, they've been a bit behind just because David Price is injury in the first part of the year. But that's a very talented team that I expect is going to be probably a wild card team when all things are said and done.